Greetings everyone. Continuing to what we were discussing in the previous session, let us come to do some practical question again, so that whatever perquisites that we have learned, that is stay in a hotel or stay in house, two residential house occupying, etc., etc., how do we compute that? So coming to this example or illustration 2, the Mr. Manoj is appointed at Delhi. He stayed in a hotel for 50 days and thereafter shifted in a house provided by the employer. From the following information, you have to compute the taxable value of the perquisite if the stay in hotel is room rent in the hotel is rupees 2000 per day. Salary for valuation of accommodation during the previous year is rupees 7,30,000. Point number 3 says that the employer recovered 200 per day from Mr. Manoj regarding the stay in the hotel. Okay, so we have to compute the perquisite as stay in hotel. So let us do it together here. Valuation for stay in hotel. The computation is for the assessment year 2025-26. Let us work on it. First of all, let us take the valuation of, because we have to compare here two things, that is what is the rent he has actually paid, and secondly 24% of his salary. And here it says salary for the value, they have already computed the salary for valuation of accommodation, that is rupees 7,30,000. So but he stayed in a hotel, room hotel for how many days, that is we have to find out. It is 50 days given in the question. So maybe to first compute in step number 1, 24% means 24 upon 100 into salary is 7,30,000 into 50 upon 365. Okay. This 24 into 2 into 50, so this comes as 24,000. Then step number 2 is we have to find what amount has been paid, the rent of the hotel. So he is paying it for 2,000 rupees and he has stayed here for 50 days. So it will be 2,000 rupees into 50, which is equal to 1 lakh rupee. Now we have to compare and find out whichever is less, that will be the taxable perquisite. So whatever amount is less is obviously 24,000 is much less than rupees 1 lakh. So value of perquisite is 24,000 less, that is minus the amount that was recovered from him. So the recovery was 200 was made for every day. So 200 into 50, which makes it 200 into 50 makes it 10,000. So the taxable perquisite will be 14,000. So this is how we compute the value of perquisite in a hotel. Then this is one. We'll be practicing more illustrations in order to understand other perquisites better. But before doing that, we will move on to the next perquisite, that is the valuation of a car. That is, in some, some of the cases, or maybe the nature of the job is that, or position or the status of the employee is such that they are provided for a car for their office purpose, or maybe also sometimes for their personal purpose also. So here there is there are some criterias or categories that have to be considered while calculating the taxable value of the perquisite, that is by providing the car to the motor car. So there are three criterias. When that is, first one is when a car is owned or hired by the employer. In that case, the value of perquisite shall be included in the salary income of the specified employee only. And when the car is owned by the employee, then the value of car perquisite shall be included in the salary income of the employee, whether specified or not specified. And per month denotes a complete month according to the English calendar, and a part of that month is ignored for the valuation of the motor car. So we begin with this to understand the valuation of car. So first thing that we have to decide is whether it belongs to employer or employee. On this category we will take some decisions. Then who bears the running and maintaining expenses? Again, is it the employee or the employer, whoever does this? And what is the purpose of use here? That is official purpose, personal purpose, or mixed purpose. Here the mixed purpose means that it is the car is given to the employee and he may use it for official purpose or may use it for personal purpose also. Whatever, for example, maybe from morning till 5 he's using it for official purpose, but after that he can take it home and maybe he takes his family for dinner with by that car. So that is also for mixed purpose. Coming to in detail about that, taking these three criterias, that is to compute, let us understand in detail that how we are going to consider each criteria. So this chart gives you a very wholesome picture of the treatment of the car in varied situation, that is whether owned by the employer or by the employee who is bearing the expenditure, etc., etc. So let us understand that how step by step we are going to calculate the value of this perquisite based on the use of the car. The first thing that we have to know is that the car owned or hired by the employer, in case if it is the first category is this, if it is owned or hired by the employer, in that case the car is wholly and exclusively in the performance of his and the car is used wholly and exclusively in the performance of his official duty. In this case, that means it is owned by the employer, plus it is only for strictly for official use or official purpose. Then the value of such perquisite or car facility will be taken as nil, provided the prescribed conditions are satisfied. So here the value will be taken as nil. So what is the second situation? When the car is owned by the employer and it is exclusively used for private or personal purposes of the employee or any member of the household. Maybe. Then in that case, we have to again take three important points to be compared, and the least of this is charged as a perquisite, that becomes a value per a taxable perquisite from the employee. What are those three important points? The first is Actual amount of expenses incurred on the running and maintenance of the car. I think we have it here. That is when he is for only and only personal use. Then actual expenditure, that is there. This is the first point, actual expenditure incurred, including this. Then remuneration, if any, paid to the chauffeur, that is the driver, if any remuneration is paid to him, and the depreciation at the rate of 10%. Okay, plus 10% depreciation. These three things have to taken into consideration, and we will from these 3 points we will deduct the amount that is recovered from the employee. So the car owned, but it is used for personal use, it is provided for the personal use. We are going to take these 3 points into consideration, or maybe these 3 amounts into consideration, and compute the value of perquisite. The third situation is when the car is taken on lease, and it is, it is taken on lease, that it is not owned by the employer, but he has also rented it, and it is used exclusively for the private or personal purpose of employee or any members of his household. In that case, whatever the amount is spent on running and maintaining the car, uh, and the remuneration, that is remuneration, if any, paid to the driver, less if any amount is charged from the employee. So this is situation 3, when the car is taken on lease. Now, point number 4, or the situation number 4, when the car is owned or hired by the employer. In this case, the car is used partly in the performance of duty and partly for private or personal purposes of the employee or any member of his household. In this case, if the entire expenses of maintenance and running of the motor car are borne by the employer, then the amount to be taken up is, for the small car, it is rupees 1800. That is, the small or big car is decided on the basis of its cubic capacity of the engine. So if the cubic capacity of the engine does not exceed 1.6 liter, that is, it is less than or equal to 1.6 liter, in that case the valuation will be taken up 1800 per month, and it will be decided as the large car when the cubic capacity of engine of the car exceeds rupees 1.6 liters, that is here 1.6 liter, and then here the amount to be taken up is rupees 2400 per month. This is the value of perquisite, that we don't have to go into any calculation, we just have to decide and pick these amount, whether to 2400 or rupees 900. And then we also have to see that if the expenses of the maintenance and running for his private or personal purposes are met by the SSE, that is the employee, if employee is meeting that part, in that case it is 900 in case of large car and 600 per month in case of a small car, as it is here. Okay, so it is the employee is bearing the running and this cost, so then he has to pay. If it is big car, then it is or large car with the engine beyond 1.6 liter cc, it is 900 per month, and it is, if it is less than that, then it is rupees 600 per month. So here and chauffeur or driver's expenditure is also included, but chauffeur or driver's expenditure is to be as per the standardized payment that is to be taken up is as rupees 900 rupees per month. Okay, then there is the next situation, that is the fifth situation, where the employee uses more than one car, because it's not necessary that he uses only one car. Maybe he needs two car, and when more than one motor car is owned or owned or hired by the employer, and the employee or any member of his household is allowed to use such motor car. Maybe otherwise it may be wholly or exclusively in the performance of duty. In that case, the perquisite value is again, for the first one car, it is if it is a small, 1800 per month, and if it is a large car, it is 2400 per month. And chauffeur, that charges given here are rupees 900 per month. This was a party, that is, if a party that is in respect of one car. So one car we will decide on the basis of again the volume of the engine. But now, because in this case he has more than one car, so in respect of first car we will consider this. But in respect of the other cars, that is, maybe he has two, then other car, and maybe he has four or five, then it is cars. So in case of other cars, assuming the car or cars is used exclusively for private purpose, and the value shall be then determined as we have discussed just now. That is, if the car is similar to if the car is owned by the employer, and also, as discussed in 3, if the car is taken on lease by the employer in point number 3. So we will go back to point number 2 and 3, and those points have to be taken into consideration in a case of more than one car. So point number 2 says, if it is owned by the employer, then it is actual amount of whatever expenditure is incurred plus on running and maintenance of the car. We have to include the depreciation 10%, and we have to include the remuneration. And if it is taken on lease, then whatever amount is spent on running and maintaining the car, remuneration, plus also the amount which are being charged from the employee. So these things have to be kept in mind. Now coming to one more situation when the actual running and maintenance charges, including the driver's remuneration also, they are met or reimbursed by the employer. And such a reimbursement is for the use of the car and exclusively for official purpose. Then the value of such perquisite will be considered as nil, provided the prescribed conditions that are there, they are satisfied, they are fulfilled. But where the reimbursement of expenses of the car is wholly for personal purposes of the employee or any member of his household, value shall be taken equal to the amount that is reimbursed. Second situation here, it says that third situation under the same category, when it is owned by the employee, where the reimbursement of expenses of that car is partly for official purposes and partly for personal purposes, that is the mixed use of the employee or any member of his household. In that case, the uh, we again decide accordingly that whether the car is big or is small. So in case of a small car, the value perquisite will be the actual amount of expenditure incurred by the employee, less incurred by the employer, sorry, less 1800 rupees per month plus 900 per month for the driver, if any, provided the prescribed conditions are satisfied. Similarly, if it is a large car, then the value perquisite should be the actual amount of expenditure incurred by the employer, less or minus 2400 per month plus 900 per month for the chauffeur or driver, if any, provided the prescribed conditions are satisfied. Okay, so this is how we are. No doubt, I understand it's quite exhaustive and maybe a bit confusing, and therefore you have a chart before you. That is, first you have to take the criteria, that is whether it is owned by the employer or the employee. Second is who is bearing the expenses. Third is what is the use, official or personal. If it is purely official, obviously you will have to treat it as nil, but if it is personal, then it's mixed use, then accordingly we will calculate on the basis of, maybe on the basis of actual expenditure or on the basis of the volume of the engine. Okay, so this is about the car part, that is the perquisite which is there. Now let us come down to one small practical illustration which we will be doing it in order to understand the valuation of this perquisite in a better way. So let me read it out. It says that Mr. X is employed by a company. He has been provided a car which is 12cc, owned by the employer, and the cost of this car is rupees 4,26,000. The expenditure incurred by the company on maintenance of the car is it is petrol and rupees 46,000, that is they are spending on petrol rupees 46,000, on driver rupees 36,000, and maintenance rupees 10,000. The car is used by X partly for official and for the partly for private purpose, and the sum of 20,000 is recovered from X. Obviously, the last entry will be deducted from whatever the value of perquisites have been computed. Now here, first thing is decided here, that who is the owner of the car. Owner is the employer, and it is the use is mixed. So it is use of the car is mixed. So if we just go back to the chart and we find if it is owned by the employer and the use of the car is mixed, in that it is employer, it is used is mixed, then the employer, and yes, who bears the expenses? It is employer. In that case, if it is a large car, then we will go for 1800 per month, the value as 1800 per month. So in this, again, we are going to take it as that only. So the value of perquisite is car is 1800 into 12, which makes it 21,600. There is a driver also on which some expenditure is done, but whatever the allowable limit, we will be computing that. So for driver, twelve nines are 108. So it is 10,800. 10,800, that is 21,000. So the value of the perquisite is 32,400. This is how we are going to decide and compute the value of perquisite in this case. That is when the employer is bearing everything, and the car is also provided by him. So I hope this is clear. We will be moving on to more complicated illustrations in further sessions. That is all for today. Thank you.